Okay, cool. Hello, humans. It is Thursday. I'm Alex Glow with Hackster.io, as you probably know. Too much rhyming. Anyway, okay, so I have picked this out of the slush pile, which is something that I got probably at Open Hardware Summit, if not before. Open Hardware Summit is the annual convention put on by the Open Source Hardware Association, OSHWA, who are super cool. And this is something that I'm very excited about because human interface devices, HIDs, oh no! are a key component to human-computer interaction, or HCI. So many TLAs. There we go. I'll drop my mouse wheel. Oh, it's 3D printed. Ooh, wow, this is so cool. It's nicely done too. It looks like it's from a resin printer. It's got some floor gunk on it now, but yeah. So, has a scroll wheel. We've got, what is this? Huh. I actually don't know what this thing is. It looks like a giant heatsink. It's got a thing on the bottom. This must be a sensor of some type. We'll go through the bill of materials in just a sec, but yeah, here is the PCB that we are talking about. It is, there we go. So we've got a prototyping area over here. We've got an HID switch. So that means this thing has two options. You can have it in HID mode, human interface device mode, where it just acts like a regular mouse. And you can also have it in non-HID mode, which means that it will read all the sensors and just stream them to your computer over the serial port. Some of this stuff has already been done. That's very nice. We don't have to manually solder a tiny Arduino Leonardo chip. What is this? Atmega 32U4RC. So the cool thing, this is an Arduino Leonardo chip. The cool thing about that is that it can act by default as a native computer input device. That could be a mouse, a joystick, a MIDI device, a keyboard, things like that. And people do use these for DIYing those. So in this case, it's acting as a native mouse, and it should come pre-programmed with the code that it needs to run to work as a mouse. You've got spots for buttons and things. You've got the micro USB thingy already attached. That's very nice. As well as this thingy. F1. What is F? Huh. Huh. FET, maybe. Anyway. Some other little thingies. And the switch, of course. Another little button. And some tiny little surface mount, capacitors and resistors and transistors and things. So, it's very nice that they've already done a bunch of the more fidgety work for us. The rest of this stuff is probably all through hole. We've got this, which is this a dial? I don't want to mess with this too much unless it's not actually something I should be poking at with my fingers, because there's some optical components in here as well, including this LED, this little lens thingamajig. There's a reader somewhere or other. I'm not sure if that's what this is or what. Wait, this is a sticker. Oh, that's adorable. We have a sticker with a mouse on it. Necessary. 2 buttony switches, and I would like to later on design a little mouse carapace for this. Or maybe it'll look like a... What if it looked like a real mouse and it had little ears, and when you push the ears it clicks the buttons? That'd be amazing. Oh man, and then if you like, that'd be like petting his little nose or something. Okay. Settle down, Alex. We've got some what appear to be standoffs or whatever. We've got a little capacitor through hole. We've got some headers that you can plug stuff in. You've got a thing. We will find out what this thing is. Maybe it's a place to put the scroll wheel. Looks like it. Looks like these go like that. Ha ha ha, I've solved the mystery. Okay, let's put this together. So first up, the website is here on GitHub. That's not the right thing. Here we go. github.com/biomurph/mouse. As usual, that's in the description to this video. You've got a bunch of information about the hardware. You've got this library. This mousey folder is an Arduino library written that includes the library that it needs, and an example, which is the code that's already loaded on the Leonardo here. Super easy. Very nice. And there's a whole detailed readme, including a GIF of a computer mouse turning into a real mouse. This is amazing. It's really nicely labeled. Can we find out what that other thing is? Oh, that's the encoder! It's a rotary encoder for the scroll wheel, of course. Okay. So we have an extra set of headers. That's very nice. This thing here is an ADNS 2016. That must be the sensor for the optical thingamajig component. Mouse playground prototype area. You got 5 volts in ground rails, and then a bunch of pads. Some kind of a thing here in the middle. And I can see where everything goes. Fantastic. So, ADNS 2016. Oh! Hey, it talks about it here. The 26 apparently went EOL end of life years ago. Extra Throwback Thursday shout out. Says, years ago I tried to make a go of it in open source hardware design, production, and sales. I made something like this before SparkFun did. This is this breakout for an ADNS 2620 optical mouse sensor. So that's indeed what that is. But it never got off the ground. I've been sitting on a small pile of components from those days, and this summer I've decided that I have to chip away at that pile, so here you go, a fully functional computer mouse for you to hack and modify to your heart's delight. You're welcome. Thank you, Murph. In case you're curious, this person is also the person who made the pulse sensor that everyone uses for heartbeat sensing projects. And I have one and I've still never gotten around to using it yet, but there's so much I want to do with it. So they definitely have some cool expertise with this kind of stuff. They explain HID mode and not HID mode, and troubleshooting and things. Very great. So it's built around an Atmega 32U4 with the Arduino Leonardo bootloader, and has already been programmed with the example sketch from the Mousy library. I already went over that. So I have installed the library, so we can mess around with that in a minute if we want. There's another Throwback Thursday component to this, which is that I have made previously. I've never made a mouse before. I have made a couple of weird keyboards, including this binary monster keyboard where someone bet me that I couldn't finish this project by the end of the night at a hackathon that I was mentoring. And I totally did. I wrote their name with it just to prove them wrong. So this is basically, you know how... So with 5 digits, you can spell every letter in the English alphabet in binary, plus a few extra spaces for punctuation. So A would be, for example, 00001, B would be 00010, C is 00011, etc. So I decided to make a chorded keyboard that uses that to produce a one-handed keyboard where you can type any of the most common characters with just one hand. Ooh, and there's more coming up about that. And I've been playing around with another one-handed chorded keyboard that's a consumer product. And you can see another weird keyboard that I made years and years ago. So this is a thing that I'm fascinated by, and you can see how someone would use something like the Leonardo, in this case, the Teensy, which also can act as a native human interface device, keyboard, mouse, etc., to create a keyboard. And then this one uses it as a mouse. You might also be interested, if you're into this kind of stuff, you might also be into the Open Steno project. So Josh Lifton from Crowd Supply is really into this. He's involved in it, as well as Mirabai Knight, who does all the stenography live stenography for the Science Hack Days in San Francisco. So I was really excited to find out that they're involved with this. So rad. That's all the internet stuff we're going to look at. I'm just going to pull up this picture again so I can reference it, and we're going to solder together this kit because that's a great thing to do on a dark, chilly evening. I'm turning on my soldering iron. I've got my brass coil here. This is what I use to sort of get the excess solder off the tip and clean off anything that's corroded. I've also got my little tip tinner canister that's attached to the soldering iron body itself. I've got my giant roll of solder on its little stand. I need to design some little 3D printed nubbins to put on the end of that so that the little rod doesn't keep falling out. So I've got my third hand here where I'm going to hold stuff. And what are we going to start with? I need to know how this thing connects. So let's see. we'll put things where they go. We've got these go together, these go together. This is the scroll wheel components. We've got the optical components. We've got the buttons. We've got the capacitor, the headers. I don't know, what are these guys? Oh, they're probably for it to just like glide around on, huh? There aren't any little bearings or anything, so I guess these just sort of snap in. Yes, they do. Okay, cool. It is a little unclear how all of this goes together. So I guess this goes like this, and then you solder on the sensor on top of that, and oh, okay. But how does this attach? That is unclear. Also, it looks like when I solder this guy in, it will sort of jut out into the area that this wants to use. I wonder, is there like an assembly guide? Oh, assembly instructions.md. There's a readme for this. Okay. Beautiful. Okay, so now I'm going to be referring to this page, which is the assembly instructions.md file. It's a markdown file, which means that it's easiest to just view it in GitHub, where it will read all the markdown code and convert it to the formatting stuff. Alright, so my soldering iron is nice and warmed up. First thing we do is put in the ADNS 2026. Has a small piece of Kapton tape covering the lens. Do not remove the Kapton tape until directed to by these instructions. Fair enough. Do not want the random goo or dust getting in there. Solder this on. It's very important that it gets soldered at the right height on the board. Incorrect vertical position will cause the mouse to fail. I don't want my mouse to fail. Make sure that the ends of the ADNS legs are touching the surface of the table. Oh, okay. So many all caps and bold things. But that's good, because I would like to do this correctly the first time. Otherwise, it will be a huge pain. So, since it wants me to solder it on the table, I'm really glad that I looked for the README first. Let's see, and then the orientation, it does have some little sort of non-symmetrical dots, so that will help. What's the orientation? It looks like it goes like this. And, okay, pin 1 is marked by a small round circle in 1/4 of the IC, and pin 4 is marked by the large round circle that I'm pointing to. Okay. So yes, this is the correct orientation. We are going to pop it into the little thingy. And by thingy, I mean holes. My surface seems to be a little warped, but that's pretty good. Place the PCB flat side down on a smooth surface and then put the legs into the holes. We just talked about this. Once you have the part oriented correctly and the legs are touching the tabletop through the PCB holes with the PCB flat on the tabletop, go ahead and solder each leg from the top. Well, that answers the question that I had before. Okay. I feel like there was something else that I wanted to check before I do this, but everything seems to be in order. Yeah, that's pretty solid. So, let us begin. I really need to get myself a thinner tip for this soldering iron because yeah, getting this down into where it can touch both the leg that I'm soldering and the solder pad down there is a little annoying. Go. But I don't want to hear from anyone about it because I already know it's a problem. I have bridged these two contacts. So let's get that out of there. Using solder wick here to pull off some of the extra solder. Okay, better. All right. I'm just checking that that looks nice from both sides. Yes. They are poking through a little bit. I think it's because I have this soft mat underneath. So I'm going to see if I can grab a more rigid surface. About this box. Okay. The art of focusing. Okay. Now I'm going to try and melt all of these, just so that they're going to sit at the right level. That's a little nicer. You're poking out a little bit still. Okay, close enough. Enough monkeying. Close enough is a favorite phrase of mine. It really helps with getting through life. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the phrase, but good is the, or perfect is the enemy of good. It's a very useful term. Like, if you keep trying to get it perfect, you're never going to end up with something that's just good enough to be ready to go. You're going to keep second guessing yourself forever and probably get too precious in your pursuit of excellence. I want to make sure all these pads are still connected on the other side, because when I was monkeying around with it before, things got melted a lot. But the ones on this side look much nicer. So nice. Let's up the brightness here. Yeah, so you can really appreciate my nice soldering. Alright, so that seems to have been the most sensitive part of this whole business. So let's see what's next. Resonator at Y1. Oh, I thought it was a regular capacitor, but he is calling it a resonator. So let's pull this off the tape. Oh, no, let's clip it off the tape. And throw it into this hole here. And now bend these legs outward so that it stays in place. And I'm going to solder that on. As usual, I'm starting with a little bit of solder on the tip of the soldering iron, using that to create good thermal contact with the contacts of the leads of the component and the solder pads on the board. They're copper pads. And then you apply the solder from the other side as a soldering iron, so you can make sure everything gets nice and hot, and the solder should just flow to where the heat is. Okay, we've got our resonator on. What's next? LED at D1. LEDs on PCBs are usually labeled as D because that stands for diode. So any kind of diode, whether it's an LED or a like Zener diode or whatever, it's just going to be labeled with a regular D. And the square hole here is our positive leg, and the other one is our negative leg, as indicated by this little flat guy, which corresponds to the flat side on the LED. Oh, I lied. It's the other way around. Long leg toward the middle of the board. I made a false assumption. Oh, I see what it is. It's the opposite because flat side does not have this little lip, and the other side does. I can never remember just by which one is square and which one is a circle. So the leads of the LED need to be bent up 90 degrees so it will point toward the ADNS sensor. Yeah, that's a question. So like, I don't need any extra space. Okay, so I only need enough for the width of the LED. Doop-de-doo. That's pretty good. All right. Now I'm going to bend these outwards, just like if I were soldering this straight on. That's fairly secure. Just going to try and make sure that it's straight. And I'm going to make a little solder snake here. I think of these like cobras, but it helps if I'm trying to solder something and I need more hands than I have. Okay, so that allowed me to sort of hold it in place while I soldered that. And that means I can wiggle it around a little bit still to make sure that it goes straight on before soldering the other leg. And that looks good now. Cool. I'm holding onto the legs with my finger while I clip them off, just so that they don't go everywhere as much as usual. Next, solder in the two 7-pin female headers. The PCB should sit flat on them, upside down, for easy soldering. Get one leg of each cell header soldered, it's called tacking, and then turn over the board to make sure that the headers are sitting straight. Adjust as necessary by remelting the pin you soldered, then solder the rest of the pins. Solid tip. Okay. We have an extra set of headers, which is nice. We stick them in here. We're gonna stick it upside down. Do our tack soldering, like you mentioned, with it sitting flat on the table. Doop, doop, doop. Trying to get my focus to where it needs to be. There we go. Okay. Soldering first our 5-volt and ground pins. Those are pretty straight. This one is not straight. It's not straight at all. I lied. There we go. Both pretty gorgeous. Okay, cool. Now let's do the rest of them. In fact, I'm going to bring back the box because I think that was helpful for getting a nice focus level. So you can actually see what I'm doing. There we go. So we've got our 5-volt and ground pins tack soldered on there. And we're going to do the rest of them now. I do think about having a soundtrack for this part. I've been messing around in Ableton Live to create some tracks that would be good for background music. because it's so hard to find music that's actually good and royalty-free and you can use in videos. I know a couple people who do have music for their bands or whatever, but I think music with lyrics would be distracting. So I gotta make some fresh beats for y'all. Or maybe I'll do some kind of a contest. What do you think? Should we do like a contest where people submit electronic music and then you'll get swag if your thing is chosen? I think that'd be cool. I definitely believe in giving people things or money or swag or whatever. Let them know up front what they'll get if their creative contributions are chosen, because that is ethical. So stay tuned, maybe that'll happen. Alright, step 5, encoder at U2. Here is our optical encoder. It goes on at U2. Very thematic with, we were just talking about music. So which way on does this go? Okay, the small side. Wait, no, the plastic side goes this way. Okay, as I thought. So it's got these little clippy guys that are going to go down into there. And those should hold it pretty solidly. Go in. There we are. Nice. Very sturdy. This one I don't have to tack solder or anything. I just sort of push it in and go. Although it looks like it might be a little further down. Make sure the encoder is inserted all the way. Yeah, they bolded that. So, yeah, right now mine is not all the way inserted. Ah, come on. Okay, cool. Now it is. They've got a nice close-up picture to show you what it should look like, too. Ooh! This is a very good tutorial. This will ensure that the wheel and the wheel support will fit correctly later, because you want it to line up with the encoder wheel that we're putting on. And then after this we're going to do the buttons, but let's solder this in for now. Got some nice support here from these big clippies. Yeah, as I mentioned before, you should have good thermal conduction, so I should be able to touch any part of this joint with the solder and have it sort of flow to where it wants to go. So the fact that it's flowing to where the soldering iron isn't touching is a good sign. It means that I have good thermal contact. And sometimes just to get that contact, you need a little bit of solder on the soldering iron itself. Because think about it, if you have like one little bit of metal at one point, contacting another little bit of metal at another point, that's not going to be a very good, efficient method of transferring heat. But if you have like a glob of molten solder between the two, it'll sort of like attach to both, and then you have a much better heat transfer. Okay, so now the switches. These have an orientation. It looks like it is this way, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. Switches usually, whichever way they're put in, they should be reversible. But they do have, so if you see here, I can flip it this way, I can flip it that way, like 180 degrees, but I can't flip it 90 degrees, that's bad. Typically either these pairs across or these pairs sideways will be connected, and so you gotta make sure you put it in the right way. But since they're paired up, the direction of the thing, as long as it's one of those two 180 degree things, positions, does not matter so much. Okay. The legs will snap into the PCB and hold in there for you to solder them. They've really designed this well for people who are only used to through-hole soldering and want to get some practice. So if that's your level, especially if you're interested in interface designs or devices, this is a great project for you to undertake. I'm thinking obviously I'd go for techno music with this. The problem is I'm not very good at techno yet because I just started playing around with Ableton, so That's another great reason to have like a contest or whatever. It probably wouldn't be a contest. It would probably just be open to whoever, and I'll pick whatever music is right for the day. But I'm kind of wondering if another genre would work. Like, remember Cowboy Bebop, how it had music from almost every genre in there, and it was amazing, and they did it amazingly every time? Like, maybe we don't have to always stick to techno for this stuff. I was talking to Jay from Crash Space, who makes his awesome spider shoulder robot, and he's really into listening to Disney songs while he works on electronics, which, you know, that's a great option too. We don't all have to listen to the Tron soundtrack while we hack, although that is my preferred way to go. So first, remove the Kapton tape before attaching the clear plastic lens to the bottom of the board. Use a pair of tweezers or your fingernail to peel off the Kapton tape that covers the ADNS lens. So, since I habitually get my fingernails dirty by doing stuff, I keep them super short. So I'm going to use a pair of tweezers here. Pull off this orange Kapton tape. It's an insulating tape that's super popular for electronics, including space technology. If you see this clear orange tape on a space robot, don't be surprised. Okay, so we've taken that off. Then orient the lens so that the triangular prism is on the side with the LED. I was messing around with that earlier. Like so. The lens should fit flat against the ADNS lens. We got a hot glue. Please do not use cyanoacrylate, aka super glue or crazy glue. It will ruin the lens. That's good to know. Yeah, so super glue, crazy glue, cyanoacrylate will actually melt acrylic. In fact, you can use it. Oh wait, no, I'm thinking of acetone. Well, I think super glue will as well, actually, but it will definitely damage lots of types of plastics. I used to work assembling lamps. These Super Mario themed, I mean, not officially, obviously. They were generic plumber game lamps. No, they were these question mark blocks lamps that you would punch from below and they go ding and make like a little coin noise. Anyway, so we were assembling these lamps that were laser cut from acrylic, and my hot glue's gotta warm up, so I'm gonna talk at you for a minute. And we would use big tubes of acetone, aka nail polish remover, and where the seams of the finger joints on the laser cut sides of the box enclosure would meet, we would just run a line of acetone along there, and it would melt the two pieces of acrylic together. So you can use that. Some people use this even in acetone vapor, or a mist of liquid, I think, in order to smooth out their 3D prints that are done with ABS, because it will also melt that. It is, you know, somewhat heinous to breathe in, so you gotta be a little careful about how much you expose yourself to, but yeah, tie isn't straight. I'm probably making all kinds of noise on the microphone trying to fix it. Oh well, let's see if anyone's got comments while we wait for this hot glue to heat up. That looks cool for mouse hacks for CSGO, haha. That's true. If you're playing Counter-Strike and you want to work up your own macros and trigger them with this, it's a great way to do it. Same thing with anything with hotkeys or whatever you can easily make with the Teensy or the Arduino Leonardo, like this board. Easily make your own little macro keyboard or mouse or whatever. Just change the Arduino code and it's super easy. Someone says, how did you connect the LED? So all the info is on that top link in the description, which is the github.com/biomurph/mouse page. Let's pull that back up again. It's here. And I'm following the instructions, here, which is assemblyinstructions.md, And here's where it tells you how to put in the LED. You need to put it so that the long positive leg is oriented toward the middle of the board, and I just soldered it on like with all the rest of the parts. Okay, and here's where we are. We're doing the hot glue thing, but we have to build in a little bit of time for that to heat up. Let's see, are we ready? Oh yeah, cool. So we are using our emphatically not super glue in order to attach this, and I'm going to try and make sure that the lenses line up properly. Does that look good? That looks pretty good, yeah. Alright, moment of truth. I'm just gonna like squirt some of this under here, kind of hold it in place. Get that to cool down. It still looks pretty well aligned. Alright, after that's cooled, I'm gonna run a line under the other side. Lots of waiting around with this stuff. I'm just nervous that I'm gonna misalign this somehow and it's not gonna work, but I think it's fine. So I'm just sort of squeezing this underneath there. So that I get a nice tight fit. And it's sturdy. All right. Unplugging my hot glue now. Step 8. Feet. Attach the feet to the PCB from the bottom. Place the feet upright on a table and press the PCB onto them until they snap into the holes. Simple enough. So our little feet, guys, here they are. Ooh, I think most of the rest of this is just going to be snapping stuff together. So satisfying. So this is the bottom here. So what I'm going to do is do this. Yeah. Okay, this cardboard box is not strong enough. And I'm getting sort of an angled entry here. There we go. Cool. 3 more. Let's recalibrate so you can see what I'm doing. There we go. Take this guy, snappity part up, put it on the table. I'm gonna do the other corners before I do the place where I just hot glued, just because. Oh, come on. There we go. 2 more to go. Get this out of here. No. There we go. I only have 4 of these, so if I break one, kind of hosed. Can I say that? There's a lot of other words that I would sort of put in there, but I don't know if they'd be as viewer friendly. Okay, cool. So here we have little assembled mouse. I think I'm missing 1 or 2 things still. Oh yeah, these guys. The optical encoder. Oh, exciting. Well, it's not an optical encoder, actually. It's a rotary encoder, but, pardon me, it's a physical one. So whereas with some wheels and things, you'll use a sort of optical interrupt, like a disc that spins that has holes in it or has parts of it blacked out, and then you'll have an optical sensor pointing through the disc. So the disc is rotating, it's like oriented like this, it's rotating around an axis, and then you have your things on either side of it, and the light is shining through here so it can tell when it's, for example, if you have a disc with holes drilled in it, at regular intervals. You know that each time one of those intervals goes by, the light will be read by the sensor, and that indicates like, 5 degrees of turning or something. And that helps you tell how fast your wheel is moving, or what position your dial is at, or whatever. So that's an optical encoder. And in this case, we're using a physical one. This little wheel has a hexagon-shaped cross-section. Is that right? Yeah. And it, oh, no, I dropped it again. It just really wants to be on the floor. I don't want that. Okay. Anyway, In this case, we've got it physically turning this little wheel. I feel like I would be a great middle school teacher. I would get no respect, but I'd be really fun. Or like the weird aunt. Anyway, the clear mouse wheel has a small hex shaft on one end, which fits perfectly into the hex hub of the encoder. Fantastic. So we do that first. Ooh, look at that. It moves. They both move as one. You can kind of see this little guy turning as I turn the other guy. Cool. And it makes this very satisfying little noise. Hopefully you can hear that. Anyway, so now we take this other little 3D printed plastic standoff thingamajig and we put it in from the other side of the mouse, which is a little bit of a surprise for me. And then we insert the mouse wheel holder into the slots from the bottom of the PCB. Be careful when doing this, the parts have a snug fit, and if the cradle is not lined up with the wheel hub, it might damage the wheel! Exclamation point! The holder will snap into place and cradle the wheel axle on both sides. Let's do that. Okay, so I have taken this guy, slotted it through the bottom there, and we have, as we saw before, these little divots in the white plastic piece which align with these little divots on the wheel itself. We gotta make sure those are aligned, and I think they are. So I'm just gonna snap this into place. As long as we get these both in here at roughly the same time, they will align. But if one goes in first, it won't work as well. Oh no! See that's bad. This one is not in the right place. Go over. Go over. Oh, if I just, there we go. Okay. Whew. Oh, sweet relief. Oh no. Oh no, I might have damaged it actually. It's kind of... Actually, I think it's okay. It was kind of shifting around in there for a minute. But that seems fine. Yeah, okay. It's better than I thought. Cool. So this is not one of those ones where you can push the scroll wheel down in order to click, because this doesn't have any sensitivity in that direction. These, however, I noticed that you can push them to the side as well as clicking them down. I wonder if that's like something that intense gamers will do to like relieve the stress of repetitive motion or something. Haha. Fun. Okay, so we're done with the assembly. That's really exciting. Let's try this bad boy out and see if it works. How can I make my mouse visible to you? I mean my cursor, you know. Oh, turn off the soldering iron, grab a micro USB cable, plug it into computer, and oh no. Try to find a good angle. It's not going to rip the adapter out of the computer. This is so weird. Okay, so I'm putting this in. And usually what will happen is the computer will be like, hey, you hooked up a new device. What you doing there? Like, let me detect what it is. And is it doing that? It's not doing that. But I'm definitely getting a little bit of video slowdown, which is interesting. And now let's see. The mouse is moving! Oh my goodness, the cursor is moving on the screen! Can I click on stuff? This is so weird. I'm gonna try changing stuff on the video thing itself so you can see it. Oh, this is weird. It seems to be like, okay, I'm gonna, whoa! I'm gonna readjust the size of my little window here. Whoa! This is so meta right now. Whoa! This is so cool. I know that in much of video stuff, I think it's supposed to be transparent, right? Or not transparent, you're not supposed to see this stuff happening. Oh no, I got the text into a place where I can't put it back where it's right. I gotta use the keyboard. I'm using an application called OBS that I do my video stuff in. Okay, back to the mouse. What else can we move around? We can change it to being a window again. Oh, then you can't see the movements that I'm making though. Okay, yeah, I think like changing the windows is about all I can do. Ooh, what if we change the window for the webcam itself? Where is it? Here we go. Okay. This is certainly visually confusing. Okay. This is fun and all, but I should probably stop messing with that. Any more questions? Let's see. So the rest of this document basically has the same using your mouse info as the main README, which is like how to use your mouse, blah blah blah. It comes with the Arduino Leonardo bootloader, HID mode, not HID mode. Again, that's like human interface device mode, and troubleshooting, which is all about like HID position versus not HID position. Again, that means that if it's here, it works like a mouse. If it's slid up, then it just sends me the sensor data in a stream to the Arduino application over serial, or whatever application you have reading the serial monitor. So yeah, it'd be really fun to 3D print a little top for this. And let me know what other augmentations you would do on your own DIY mouse. Like if you were playing Counter-Strike, like what kind of things would you do? If you were playing World of Warcraft, what kind of macros would you implement? You could just cover this whole thing in more buttons, depending on how many input pins it has. Where's our Facebook window so I can see if anybody's talking to us? Here we go. No more comments. Anyway, have a great night. Hope you enjoyed this Throwback Thursday. I sure did. I feel like I had too much fun.